Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. So hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Nichols. I'm the executive director of the Woodman Museum here in Dover. So we have this gallery here, all about it's called the birthplace of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's all about the history of them being created here in Dover. This started as a project back in 2023, as the manhole cover, the commemorative manhole cover was being put in on Union Street. We had a small pop-up show in our art gallery where we had a couple of pieces, a couple comic books and memorabilia. And we just wanted to do something small, and that turned into the creators of the Ninja Turtles coming to view the gallery and us talking to Kevin Eastman, and him wanting to really get invested with it. And so we worked with Kevin Eastman, co-creator of the Ninja Turtles, to create what you see behind me. Um, Everything in here, for the most part, was donated by Kevin Eastman and Kevin Eastman Studios. And we worked on it all throughout 2024 and opened it in August. And so, yeah, it's been getting a lot of traction. It's been shared all over AP News. We actually have some other pretty large news agencies coming up here shortly to come tour the museum. But in here, you're going to find like this whole interactive history of the Ninja Turtles. And so there's artwork, there's memorabilia. The statue, there we go, right behind me is one of only two in the world. One was made for Kevin Eastman, one was made for Peter Laird. Peter's is at the library at UMass Amherst. This one is Kevin Eastman's. You can come in and read some comic books behind me, or look at some of the artwork or art books at the seating area right here. You can watch some of the old cartoons from 1987, or right behind me is video games, both TMNT 1 and 2. For those of you who might remember the old arcade game, you can come in and play. And there's just a whole bunch of different stuff to see. And yeah, come on over to the Woodman. We're open Wednesday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5.
Thank you so much, John. But Dan has so graciously agreed to join us virtually. He is a professor of English and communications at Wildwood College in St. Louis, Missouri. And while we were chatting earlier, he kind of got on the turtle train because his specialty is actually in animal comics. So from there, I'll let you take over, Dan.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Amy, for everything. This is a wonderful opportunity. I'm really happy to be back virtually in Dover. Let me see if I can pull my presentation over here. I should be able to. Can everyone see?
Yes, I can see.
Okay,
I think we're
wonderful.
good.
Okay, we're all good to go. So, we are here to talk about one of the most fun things there is, and I get to do a lot of fun things. I get to teach the world comics and art and animals. I get to work with Garfield and Snoopy and Uncle Scrooge and Donald Duck and the Teenage Turtles and Rocket Raccoon. And I've been very fortunate that people actually want to talk about these things. So I've been enjoying it a great deal. I'm really happy to be talking about the turtles and their connection to Dover today. So we'll go pretty fast at first. I have some pretty long quotes, but I think it's important for you to see them. And then we'll kind of calm down and just enjoy all the fun and all the memories that everyone has, young and old. Every background, every gender has so much to enjoy about the Teenage Turtles, and we'll see sort of the early prototypes and some of the origins of what happens with the comics and the toys and the films as well. So let's see. Should be good here. Right. So let's move this so I can see it. This is a great, just all around summary from the New York Times from 2022. Originally created in 1983 by the comic book artists Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird in New Hampshire. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were imagined as a kind of postmodern, semi-ironic send-up of the popular superhero comics of the era, particularly Marvel's Daredevil and the X-Men. With their punky, slang-heavy bite and easygoing demeanor, they were the embodiment of the certain brand of savvy Gen X cool that peaked with the arrival of the 1990s, sarcastic and streetwise, borrowing elements from prevailing trends, life surf culture, and hip-hop. And they do sort of appropriate pizza and sort of slangy hip hop put downs back and forth. There's just so, and of course the massive trend in martial arts and ninja cultures at the time. So we'll see how that all gets together. And you can see what really began, I'm going to go back for a second, with four really interesting characters, four brothers, right? Really has become a great big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle verse with hundreds of different characters and dozens of different representations and avatars and versions of the same characters. There are many versions of the Turtles themselves. There are many versions of Casey Jones, many versions of April O'Neil, some of them controversial, some of them not, for all of those characters. So we have all kinds of multiplicity and diversity invested in this gigantic world of the Turtles. And you can see here some of the artists and designers who really pay homage to that, which is always kind of nice. And just to show you that there is an awful lot of influence and industry and culture to be embraced in Turtleosity, we can just do this very quickly. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are the #1 rated daily syndicated animated TV strip for children, the #1 rated Saturday morning TV cartoon, and the highest rated at its time slot ever for CBS, the #1 top grossing independent film released in 1990, the #1 best-selling toy line in 1991 above both G.I. Joe and Barbie, the #1 male action figure toys in 1990 and 91 with over a 70% market share, 70%. And if you have any idea how viciously competitive the toy market is and was in the 1990s, you know what a massive coup that is. The #1 live touring arena show in the US in the 1990s, the Turtles coming out of their shell, the #1 Nintendo 8-bit and Game Boy video game in 1991, the #1 kids breakfast cereal from Ralston Purina in 1991, and we'll talk about why in a minute. The only non-Disney characters to appear on a Disney magazine cover and appear consistently in the theme parks. And along the way, they set new records in terms of just how quickly a character or a set of characters or an intellectual property can be introduced as a franchise. So lots to talk about there. And that's all from the Mirage Group website from 2001. You can see sort of an extreme turtle collectors collection here. And you think about the amount of time and effort and ornamentation and curation that goes into a collection like this, how much we all embrace and become and we bring the Turtles into our own lives in so many ways, right? These are our last real long quotes, but I do think they are important. This is from the New York Times in that same article. From the moment Eastman and Laird's original Teenage Ninja Turtle comic book was adapted for broadcast syndication in the animated series of the same name in 1987, the four superpowered, wisecracking reptilian heroes at its center, Raphael, Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo, named after Renaissance artists in a manner typical of the franchise's working humor, became veritable matinee idols, cartoon superstars adored by children throughout North America and beyond. Anyone who lived through it knows that that's true. What they don't know is that what they don't have here in this quote is it was also massively popular with teenagers, with young adults, and even with adults. The TMNT's original print run, the very first comics, were only a few thousand copies, but between 1987 and 1992, which is not that long a time, 90% of all American boys between ages 3 and 8 owned at least one action figure. And even though a lot of the stats that we're looking at skew toward males, the Turtles were also popular with girls. It would have been hard to find a boy in America, and maybe even a girl, who is not a fan of the TMNT. The heroes on the half shell were not just the most famous independent comic book ever. At one point, they were the biggest thing in pop culture. And then this from the Comics Through Time Encyclopedia. The TMNT were perhaps the biggest example of an unexpected publishing and licensing success between 84 and 93. The franchise became a popular culture sensation in the late 80s and early 90s, especially for younger audiences. Turtles were virtually everywhere in children's culture of the period. And I think that's still true. We've had so many upgrades, so many revitalizations, so many different manifestations of these four characters and their world. It really is one of the most important, singular, and pervasive forms of all ages media entertainment there is. And some of it is not all ages, but most of it is. Right. And the story begins in Dover. In 1982, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird met working at a Maine lobster restaurant, sort of a New England thing, right, for art students. In 1983, they shared a house at 28 Union Street in Dover. These are images from the house, and it sheltered the birth of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It was torn down in 2011, decades after we probably should have known better. And this is from a wonderful blog article from 2020, before there were any historical plaques or memorials there. Today, it's a mere blank space in the neighborhood. There was nothing on the property when I visited but a dumpster and some dirty snow. I mean, we have an Archie statue in Meredith because the illustrator of that comic was from there. We definitely should have some Ninja Turtle statues in Dover. We'd all benefit from a little turtle power. And there is a picture of the house that no longer exists. Here's the lot that was turned into kind of a trash and a recycling park for the neighborhood. Of course, many of you have probably seen right nearby the actual historical marker. I have not seen it. I'm looking forward to seeing it in person someday. And then three of the turtles working in and out of Mirage Studios, the studio founded by Eastman and Laird, has a lot to say about New England. Has a lot to say. Lots of different connections there. There's a whole wonderful series of books and articles about it, and then there is the actual design for the memorial manhole cover, and there's the manhole cover itself. I could show you dozens and dozens of pictures of fans who have gone on their odyssey, their quest, their pilgrimage to be there at the birth site of the turtles. But I'm sure you all probably know that better than me. And this is really where it begins. We were all sitting around in the living room in that house, and we'd been watching a number of bad TV shows. And I think it's interesting that Turtles begin out of people looking at pulpy television crime stories and romances and things. The Turtles are born out of just great American leisure, sitting there watching TJ Hooker and the A-Team and the Love Connection. We got really punchy, and for some reason I did a sketch of a turtle with a mask. Pete did one and another. Then I said, wait. And I drew 4 turtles, each with a different weapon. And I said, why not call them Ninja Turtles? Pete said, why not call them Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? From a New York Times interview in 1988. And these are 2 of the first 2 turtle drawings. This is the first real concept sketch that went out there in the world to sort of represent the turtles. I love that the characters are already so well defined. I love the sense of humanoid action. I love that they are all specialists in different martial arts weapons. I love that they are grinning and grimacing at the same time. There's a smile and a toughness to both. And I think that's one of the things that's always appealed to kids, is that they look really tough and they act really tough, but they're actually quite sweet and loving and thoughtful, good, well-adjusted Ninja Turtles. And I think that means a lot. And of course, that concept leads to some of the richest independent and alternative comic book stories of their time, largely satiric, and we'll see why. Once it's sold as an actual toy franchise and as an animated series, it really, really takes off. These are just 4 different versions. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures. These are just 4 of the most popular. And of course, when we tell stories, if we're dealing with Superman or Spider-Man or Batman or whoever it is, different creators have different takes, and they alter the turtle concept a little bit to suit their own style, to suit their own needs, to suit what audiences and readers want to see at the time. So we have an infinite number of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle possibilities, and that's what makes the comics so much fun. There's a lot of talk right now about this series where Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird kind of reunite for these characters. This has been optioned. It's going to be a film, and it's a darker version. It's kind of their ultimate parody of The Dark Knight Returns, I think, but it has a lot of other samurai elements as well. And I don't know how many of you know this, but the writer of the screenplay that's now in development is actually hoping to get Judith Clogue back from the original April O'Neil from the 90s films, from the New Line 90s films. So we're certainly hoping that will happen. I'm sure there'll be all kinds of Easter eggs and turtle hints. And then this slide I'm going to go through very quickly because this is really the history of how we go from an independent comic book to a massive worldwide media phenomenon. The original comic book is produced using tax refunds and loans from relatives. The original first 3,000 comics have a $1.50 cover price, and they sell them to retailers and distributors for 60 cents a piece. They sell out in 3 weeks. So immediately people know there's something going on in 1984. By 1986, Mark Friedman, who is kind of a licensing agent, pitches the concept to Playmates, the toy company, and toy companies at the time were viciously battling to try to out high concept each other between Barbie and G.I. Joe and Star Wars and everything else. And the argument that Friedman used was that these toys are fun. Like there's lots of science fiction, fantasy, violence. There's lots of fashion play with Barbie, but these turtles are fun. They're joyful. The Turtles put fun back into action figures. They love truth, justice, and a slice of pizza. You can't even take the name seriously, and kids love that, right? By 1987, the best-selling Mirage comics and specials led to the television series, the video games, made-for-TV movies, motion pictures, action figures, toys, and more. Almost overnight, Mirage Studios expanded to accommodate the Del. In 1990, the first film told the Turtles' origin story and featured both men in Ninja Turtle costumes and puppetry from Jim Henson's Creature Shop. With a budget of $14 million, it earned $134 million at the box office. New Line, which was always a studio that was always taking risks, thought that this was just such a bizarre concept that it might work. They did the same thing with RoboCop, by the way. And it became the fourth highest grossing film of the year and the biggest independent film ever at the time, with sequels in 91 and 93, and now, of course, a host of live action films. Between 91 and 95, within the first 4 years, what came to be called Turtle Mania, more than $1 billion in turtle toys were sold worldwide. And now we have anywhere between 20 and 40 TV shows, feature film specials. It's become a essential element of 21st century American popular culture for children and for adults. Some adults looking nostalgically backward, some adults looking artistically forward to see what they can do with the Turtles and make them new and relevant to our times. So lots to talk about there. But what it really begins with is our human fascination with putting animals in art, and maybe even animal warriors in art. These all go back to, of course, early illuminated manuscripts where we're merging words and pictures in sort of proto-comicsy sequential ways. And we're merging fantasy and human ethics with animal behaviors, with animal skins, with animal bodies. That is at the very top, yes, a warrior snail. And the idea of animal armor, I think, is very important, that some animals have their exoskeletons, their armor on the outside. That's certainly very important to turtles. There's something about animal characters, humanoid animal characters, anthropomorphic characters worldwide that feeds our sense of fantasy, feeds our connection to the animal world that we have lost through logic and reason. There's all kinds of philosophies on how we look at the animal. And there's also something about humanity that wants to cutesify them, that wants to turn them into Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse or SpongeBob. Whatever you want to do with it. And that has always been a massive part of popular entertainment, of course, with Warner Brothers cartoons and Disney cartoons and Hanna-Barbera cartoons, but it's also been a massive part of comics. The funny animal comics that begin in the 1930s and run all the way till now are probably the best-selling genre over time, even more so than the superheroes in many ways and sometimes. And I want to show you this image. It's nothing to do with the turtles, except that it is the funny animal genre. And you can see these funny, goofy, silly little animals and birds and bunnies and foxes are having great fun beating the crud out of Hitler and Hirohito and Mussolini. And that says something else about animal characters, especially something like these turtle warriors. They're almost, by their very nature, they are allegorically critical of human faults and human failings. Human villains look a lot worse when animals are their adversaries. There's something about not necessarily the innocence of the animal world, but the lack of human folly that makes them even more interesting. And that's one of the things that I think Eastman and Laird captured with the way these turtles are warriors and brothers, and they're a family, and they don't all get along, but they all have this wonderful charisma to them. And I think that the best of humanity filtered through animal characters is really important for us. And of course, we see that in all kinds of marquee, iconic media properties like Donald Duck. And in the 1980s, there was a boom in what we now call the independent alternative comics movement. These were comics that you could only get at specialty shops or through subscriptions. They were very edgy and avant-garde. They were genre-based, many of them, and they weren't all animal comics by any means, but they were a small market alternative to the major characters, the landmark characters from Marvel and DC. And they were quite successful. There was a real following, largely a teenage and young adult college age following. And one of the major genres of the independent alternative comics movement, most of these were black and white, not in color, and cost a lot more than a regular comic book did at the time. A Marvel comic at the time would cost 65 or 75 cents. These cost $1.50, $2, maybe even more. But one of the big genres was the funny animal genre or the animal hero genre. And some of you will probably recognize Stan Sakai's Yosagi Yojimbo there in this anthology for Critters #1, black and white book from Fantagraphics, $2 an issue, and people just like these fun alternative takes on what were once funny animal comics, but were now sort of genre blending and becoming samurai animal comics and crime comics and super animal comics. So this is kind of where the turtles were born out of this. But before we do that, I want to talk about actual turtles. I think it's not fair to talk about artistic animals until we talk about real animals. And it's fun to say that ecologically and terms of zoology, sea turtles actually do martial arts. They chop and flop and punch predators, and they have very dexterous flippers for catching and breaking scallops. So there is something very martial about them. There are turtles are also turtles, tortoises, and terrapins are some of the most expensive species there are. More than 360 known species that live everywhere except for Antarctica. Turtle dung is absolutely essential to the Great Barrier Reef seagrass meadows, so they have a real ecological niche. And the story of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles themselves has been very ambivalent in terms of eco-environmental awareness. In some sense, it taught whole generations about eco-sustainable science and conservation. The turtles are born out of a toxic dump, right? The radioactive sludge that mutates them very much in kind of a Godzilla-like way. That's very heroic. But a lot of people wanted pet turtles and took care of pet turtles because they loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And a lot of those turtles were sadly let go or mismanaged. So animal rights activists both love and question how that turtle stuff works. I think it's important to think about that. And then there is also kind of the ridiculous. This is from the Chicago Tribune from 1991. The muscle-bound little reptiles, I regret to inform you, have a political agenda, which is the same color as their shells, green. Heaven forbid that we green. Not content with entertaining children, the turtles want to indoctrinate them in environmentalist dogma and put them to work spreading it. This is, of course, the sort of extreme end of how we could read what is really a wonderful children's franchise and an action-adventure comedy franchise. We're not trying to indoctrinate anybody. We just need an interesting origin that relates to issues of our time. So it's worth mentioning. And what this writer is referring to is this page from the original comic where Splinter is watching this guy get hit in the head with this nuclear waste, and it falls down and sprays on this kid and goes down into the sewer where the turtles that have been abandoned by bad owners find it, and Splinter goes down and helps them. But what this guy doesn't know is that this page is actually a homage to Marvel's Daredevil. Where the same thing happens to Matt Murdock as a child. He saves a guy and he gets sprayed with strange toxic industrial goo. So there is a kind of eco-environmental theme there. But what the Eastman Laird were really doing was paying homage to Daredevil, which I think is very interesting. In terms of history and culture and art, turtles have a really interesting place. Right, Aeschylus died when an eagle accidentally dropped a turtle on his head. In Sumerian myth, Numurta takes on the great Asag, the great turtle warrior monster. Theseus takes on Chiron and the giant turtle. One of the Roman battle formations was Tetsudo, which was based on a turtle shell. And again, because turtles are armored animals, they have this exoskeleton. There's a lot of turtle armament and turtle armory. This is the great turtle ship from the Korean Middle Ages. And then David Bushnell's landmark pioneer turtle submarine from 1755 also has this sort of shell to it. So there's always, if we're looking at animal myths and animal art, the turtle is always associated with armor, security, safety, and also with combat, which I think is really important. But now if we leap back to the 1980s, we get so a really nice look at how Eastman and Laird kind of created their turtles. Once they had the concept down, it's really interesting. When you have comics, you usually have an artist and a writer. Sometimes someone does both. There's usually a little bit of creative frisson between the two. But in this case, Eastman and Laird really worked well together as they're both artists and they're both writers. So the truly collaborative nature of the creation process is marvelous in this case. We made a strenuous effort to have each of us pencil and ink on every page. Our working method involved literally passing the pages back and forth in an attempt to get a true blend of our respective styles. And that's something we don't see a lot in comics art. They were also really adamant that they pay homage to the artists they really liked, especially Jack Kirby, who invents much of the Marvel universe and has a lot of influence on DC as well. And of course, Frank Miller. And you can see the first issue includes this little finial here with a turtle dedicated to Frank Miller and Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby was quite pleased and produced two pinups celebrating the turtles before he passed away. And Frank Miller also loved the idea and loved the parody. There's a picture of Frank Miller, the great comics and popular culture auteur, showing off his copies of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And we'll talk more about that later. At the top are Frank Miller's famous run on Daredevil, which has been turned into a pretty successful Disney Plus series, and also several films. On the bottom are Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle IDW variant covers paying homage to those covers. You can see how closely Turtle Media likes to pay homage to Frank Miller and his interest in hard-boiled martial arts heroes and characters. And Miller himself was interested in manga and did a famous science fiction adaptation of a samurai story. He helps to make Wolverine the success that he would be. And this, I want you to look at this cover from Daredevil. This is one of my favorite covers in comics history. This is the cover of a superhero comic for children or young adults. And it says, "How does a man search for his own soul?" There's an unsuspected depth, an unsuspected pathos, an unsuspected sort of internal you don't expect in an action comic. And then if you look at the design of that, how similar it is to a lot of European comics arts and also a lot of Japanese comics. But then we look at the first issue of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and you can see how this image is very much a combination of these two. Eastman and Laird from the very beginning are really expanding on, adapting, spreading the work of Jack Kirby and Frank Miller and a lot of other artists in really new and interesting ways in this alternative funny animal comics market that allows for all this freedom of expression. And just so you can see, this the first time they ever published it was in a little, there's the whole cover, front and back cover, so you can see it's certainly very, very powerful and dramatic and dark and noiry and martial artsy and ninja-esque, but it's also very avant-garde. It's almost abstracted. It's almost expressionist with all the cross-hatching. And then this is the first zine where they actually published a picture of the characters in the ad. You know, these are both throwaway magazines. They would have cost $1.50 or less when they first appeared. The most recent sale of the zine was $22,000 in 2022, I believe. And I just checked the first printing of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a near mint copy, just sold for $38,000. These magazines have no real value. They're not medicine. They're not going to power your home. They're not going to feed you, but people love these characters so much that these artifacts have now become great cultural treasures. So that's worth thinking about. And then just to show you again, from the very beginning, Eastman and Laird are really interested artistically in what they can do with comics. This is the second issue, front and back cover, and you can see that we're already using the reflections of the turtles on robots. Number 3 really emphasizes the urban diversity of the turtles milieu. There they are in a VW bus, surrounded by a really interesting urban street scene. Number 4 is my favorite because we're really emphasizing science fiction here, and we're really playing with the turtles as warriors, and I think the green and white contrast is really strong. And it just continues through. Number 5 has kind of a Mos Eisley Star Wars homage to it. 6, they're fighting dinosaurs, and every cover is just this luscious, rich celebration of what comics can say and what Ninja Turtles can say that's very different. And again, we're always looking at Frank Miller. Frank Miller with his famous sticky ninja martial artsy pencils. And if you don't know, Frank Miller's ninja clan in the Marvel Universe is called The Hand. And of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles adversaries are called The Foot. Daredevil's martial arts sensei in the Marvel Universe is called Stick. He's right here. And the sensei, the rodent sensei of the Turtles is Splinter. You can see how much fun that is. But I just want you to see on the left is Frank Miller, and on the right is our Eastman and Laird layouts. And you can see how closely they are copying, mimicking, exploring Miller's movements. And it's also clear here. This is a pretty rough page with the famous death of Elektra, but you can see we're even paying homage to that with the figure ground bleeds behind the characters, and the layouts are very, very similar. So it wasn't just a ripoff. They really are celebrating, studying, exploring. As many young artists do, they're going to study their masters and learn from them. The book is a massive runaway hit, as you well know. That first issue has been reprinted countless times in countless different places, in color, out of color, in graphic novels, and trade paperback. etc. But greatness leads to sequels and parodies and spoofs of spoofs, and even just some pretty desperate attempts. So after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we get the adolescent radioactive black belt hamsters that eventually become part of the Turtles world. The great feminist underground cartoonist Lee Mars comes up with preteen dirty jean kung fu kangaroos. We get the geriatric gangrene jujitsu gerbils, but we're still not done. Frank Miller's Batman The Dark Knight Returns really brings Batman back from oblivion and introduces a lot of the bat language we have now. And somebody else, Mark Martin, decides to play with that and create Nat Rat, The Dark Nat Returns, parodying both Batman and the Turtles in their angry animal age. Mark Martin will actually wind up working for Turtles comics and doing some pretty good Turtles comics as well. And then eventually it gets a little out of hand. We've got radioactive wrestling rodents, colossal nuclear bambino samurai snails. So one independent publisher decides to end it all, and they bring Boris the Rambo bear out to slaughter the teenage radioactive black belt ninja mutant critters. And that kind of ends the trend for a while. But we do have some other angry animal or warrior animal concepts that grow because of the success of the Turtles. Cerebus the Barbarian Aardvark begins well before the Turtles do, but they also appreciate its Canadian creator Dave Sim, and it becomes kind of a parody of superhero characters and also a pretty interesting political parody. He appears with the Turtles in one issue. Many of us know now the powerful story of Yosaji Yojimbo, one of the longest running Asian American comic stories involving the Ronin Rabbit. Beautifully done, an epic all unto itself. He also that character becomes inordinately popular because of his connection to the Turtles, both in mass media and through comics. And then this strange book from the 70s, this is a Marvel black and white magazine, has a little backup story in it that predates the Turtles, featuring a sort of a Han Solo space mercenary raccoon who, because of the success of the Turtles, is sort of brought directly into the Marvel universe as Rocket Raccoon. He's brought in earlier, but once the Turtles take off, Marvel really starts marketing Rocket Raccoon in brand new and powerful ways. And you can see these are not flashes in the pan. This is the entire Cerebus epic of the Barbarian Aardvark. This is the entire Yosaji Yojimbo epic, which is still going. And then, of course, Rocket becomes one of the great CGI characters in action film history. So all of this really revolves around the Turtles in interesting ways. Meanwhile, the Turtles comics expand. The original series runs 115 issues plus 4 specials, but there are many other series, some for kids, some in manga style, some in European style, various crossovers and short stories and such. And some of the creators are truly splendid. This is Rick Vetch bringing his sort of underground rock and roll sensibility to the Turtles. This is Mark Zuley, who recreates the Turtles in a very powerful sort of Japanese samurai movie kind of way. The great underground artist Richard Corbin does several covers for the Turtles. And then again, you can see how these are all meant for different markets at different times, but the crossovers are especially interesting. We have the Turtles combined with the Power Rangers. We have them combined several times with Batman, which these are great, fun, goofy stories to read. They hang out with He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. They hang out with the Ghostbusters. They hang out with Archie and Betty and Veronica and Jughead. And they even hang out with the kids from Stranger Things, which you might think this is ridiculous, but this is actually a pretty good story. I like this one quite a bit. And then again, as I said, whenever you get new creators, new concepts working with characters, they change a lot. And there's been a lot of debate about April O'Neil. April O'Neil was originally a character of color. She's been made Caucasian, she's been made younger, older, she's been made Hispanic, and she's been made African American again, most recently. And again, we have to take every version, I think, by itself and evaluate what it says about this character and about the Turtleverse. But what I love about it is the massive diversity of Aprils. There is no one April O'Neil. There is no one Casey Jones. We have some original ones, but it's ridiculous to compare the original April O'Neil from the first comic book because they're so completely different, even though they represent the same name. So we have all of this rich creative diversity going on. She gets younger, she gets older, she changes hair color, she changes body type, but she's always April O'Neil, and she's always she's always the turtle's best friend. Same thing with Casey Jones, who begins as kind of a homage to the slasher films of the 80s with the hockey mask and the baseball bat, and also the vigilante crime films. But he also has evolved and changed over time, all kinds of interesting ways. Here's a fan piece on all the different costumes for Casey Jones from 1985 to 2020. And then finally get to the toys. And some people say the toys are the most important part of the turtle legacy. That might be true. These are the original these are the original prototype sculpts done by Steve Varner. I know a lot of people collect the toys. I do not. I am told that the soft heads cost a lot more. And just to show you the depth of detail and range, there is Steve Varner working on turtles now. But just look at Splinter here and look at the richness of the sculpt. Most action figures are made as cheaply as possible. And unless you have to look like a movie star, you have to look like Harrison Ford, you have to look like, they're not going to put that much effort into it, except that it's going to be fun for a toy for a kid. But these are really lovingly created anthropomorphic animal concepts. They really are beautiful to look at. And just like the comics, if you happen to have this lying around the house, it's going to be at least $1,000, anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 for scratch. I don't honestly know why. It's just a rare figure. And then, like all toy cultures, like all toy waves, like can get pretty out there. So we start blending and mixing, and we get sumo turtles, which is teaching a whole other element of Japanese culture beyond ninja and martial arts to kids in new and interesting ways. And then for those of us who can't give up the 70s, we can have troll turtles as well. Kind of fun to look at. And then a friend of mine who's a toy historian helped me with this, and he did a really nice job. I asked him what he thought the turtle toys were. If you look behind me, you can see that I'm standing in front of the Technodrome. The Technodrome was the Playmates Turtles' answer to the G.I. Joe USS Flag, an enormous coffee table sized place. Technodrome was really, really fun. I've never met a kid who owned one who didn't immediately start talking about all the fun they had doing all the things with the jail and the lights and all the crazy sort of technodrama things that it could do. It was an enormous thing that I'm sure parents loved having around the house. And then there's the Flush-O-Matic, again, especially for little kids who you get to dump ooze on people through a cybernetic toilet. What's not to love? Real ooze flushing action. It's gross, it's interactive, it's fun, it's part of the Turtles mythology. Great, great fun. I've not for many years. And then for some reason, we make April O'Neil to cash in on Jurassic Park, I guess. She is the Stone Age. She's supposed to be a journalist, right? But she's the Stone Age rockin' reporter who apparently has a radical raptor to ride around in. Again, toy concepts can be kind of goofy and strange, but this shows you just how far afield we can go from those core four turtles and their characters. And then my favorite moment of all is the Coming Out of Their Shells tour, which was partially sponsored by Pizza Hut. You could go to Pizza Hut and get a program, and you could buy tickets to see it, and it was a sellout thing. We have a clip from it that we'll show if we have time. It's lots and lots of fun. It's very interactive. The Splinter rap, I Hate Music, is one of the most fun things there is. We'll put that link in the chat so you can see how that goes. And then these are the most iconic of all Turtles toys, I think. I don't know a kid who didn't have one of these bowls in the 90s. Either the cereal bowls that were sold as a novelty, as a premium with the Ralston Purina cereal, or the delicious cookies banks that people saved and kept in their homes and collected all for. Just cookie jars are just incredibly important parts of 1980s pop culture or 90s pop culture. And then the goofiest of all, the best, strangest merchandising gimmick I've seen for the Turtles is the Kraft Easy Cheese mold. Very much like the ooze in the toilet, you can mold your Easy Cheese into turtles of your choice. You can just imagine the messes that resulted from this, because as we all know, Easy Cheese is never easy. But the mold is kind of fun to look at, and it was free with the Easy Cheese cylinder. So there you go. The last thing I want to show you is that sometimes homage is the best flattery. Kevin Eastman has been turned into an action figure himself, complete with trash bag, referencing kind of the trash culture of the turtles and the sewers. And then one last little thing. Some concluding mutations. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles have persisted longer at the top of their markets in comics, toys, and broadcast media, and that includes video games, computer games, and other merchandise forms than all other all ages IP. The only thing that comes close is something like Star Wars. The three defining facets of these anthropomorphic personalities continue to inspire new forms of animal novelty and entertainment. The fact that they are ninjas, the fact that they are teenagers, the fact that they are turtles. We keep playing on that triangle of creativity, finding all new kinds of ways to express those themes. Just the popular criticism and fan scrutiny for the toys, the animated cartoons, the pop songs, computer games, more than 35 blogs. We're probably coming up on 75 different blogs, hundreds of fan sites and social network groups around the world. Kevin Eastman still works with the turtle properties and is deeply involved in the Last Ronin feature. At least he was when last I checked. He has also helmed the Heavy Metal magazine, which is kind of an experimental European comics magazine, and continues to work with sci-fi themes through Melting Pot Comics concepts. And he's been involved in the Netflix series Love, Death, and Robots, which, if you've seen, is spectacular. Peter Laird still works on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle properties as well, and his nonprofit Xeric Foundation, which, they both became very, very wealthy and successful. I'm really proud of. I've met Kevin. I've never met Peter, but I'm really proud of both of them, just for the way they've given back to young creators, especially. The Xeric Foundation is given to a young, talented, promising cartoonist who works independently, that allows them to publish their work and get some important creative attention. And then we have every kid eventually has a turtle phase, boy and girl, gender, every background, every region. The find the comics or who watch the TV shows and the movies, who play with the toys or who just discover the video games. There are new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans born every day. Dover, New Hampshire, and I want to thank Dover and everyone involved in bringing me here to share it with you. So, Cowabunga to everybody, and thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dan. So we have a couple, well, we have one comment and then a question for you so
Sure.
far. But if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to put it in the Q&A section. So Justin said that he said, I would think that the quote from Stephen Chapman from 1991 might be referring to the Archie comic series written by Stephen Murphy, which leaned heavily on the environmental awareness themes.
Yes, that is definitely possible. Yes, I think I think that is the correct context for that quote. Yes. But the thing that kills me is we have all kinds of heroes, all kinds of superheroes who are born of eco-environmental questions and concerns. Just about every Marvel character is born of radiation in some way or another, right? Radioactive spider bites, gamma rays, whatever it's going to be. And again, I think the story was originally meant as more of a homage to Daredevil than it was a statement about toxic waste. I'm sure Stan Lee and his creators were working with the toxic waste theme when they were creating those stories during the Cold War era in the 60s. My reaction is that someone in the Chicago Tribune who's a political commentator is going after them for indoctrinating children in dangerous green politics. But yes, that is exactly right. That is the context.
We have Josiah said, was there ever any record of Disney's opinion on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when they were taking over the animal animation market in the early 90s?
There's no record that I know of, but I'm sure they were not pleased. And of course, Disney in the 90s was a corporate conglomerate in chaos. The boardroom politics of 1990s Disney is better than The Godfather, to be honest with you. There were so many strange things that were happening. There's a great book about it called Understanding Disney that I highly recommend. And Disney was getting beaten up on several fronts. They were still Disney, so they were still doing fine. But until the sort of the great second age that begins with The Little Mermaid really arrives, Disney was having trouble with its profit margins. Well, it was always making profit, but it was lesser profits than they liked. Trouble with their characters, trouble with their creative staffs, definitely trouble with their just general vision. And there's a lot of different reasons why. I'm sure that they were looking at the Turtles enviously. I'm sure they were looking at the turtles desperately. And Disney has a long tradition of sort of partnering for a time and then trying to acquire. I'm sure there were attempts where they were like, "Hey, you want to sell the turtles?" I'm sure that may have happened. I don't know of any case of that happening, but I think it's good that the turtles are owned now by a media conglomerate, that it stays separate, right? So
Okay. And then we had someone else asked, is there a crossover you'd like to see with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
me, oh my goodness. So I'm going to answer that in two ways. I always love the most outrageous crossover I've ever seen, and I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard of until I read it. It actually won a great comics industry award. Is Batman and Elmer Fudd, and you might think, how could that even remotely be worth reading? The story is so beautifully done. It will actually make you cry. It's kind of a tragedy. And it won several awards for just being very rich and innovative and interesting. So I recommend that. So everyone has been doing crossovers with Aliens franchise with the sort of xenomorph. Superman has fought the xenomorphs. I think Batman has as well. We have, of course, it's not really a crossover, the xenomorph predator thing, but I think the turtles would have a lot of fun with the aliens. I think the wisecracks that they would give the alien creatures would be a lot of fun. That would be great. I would also love to see, because I love this other children's franchise so much, I'd love to see a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles My Little Pony collaboration. I think that would be, because there's a lot of warrior battles in My Little Pony as well. I think those characters would really blend well. I don't know how that would work with the toy rights though. So but be great idea. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking that.
Okay, great answers. Sarah is wondering, who is your favorite side character?
Oh, I've always loved April. I think April's a blast. I mean, Splendor has always been kind of my favorite reason to read the comics, but or to see the films or whatever it might be. But April always has whatever iteration of April we have. We always have a moment where she first discovers the turtles, and in most cases, sometimes she's a little shocked. Sometimes she's a little like, are they monsters? Are they friends? Are they mutants? What are they? Right? But of all the great moments that get recreated, like Peter Parker getting bitten by the spider, or Miles Morales getting bitten by the spider, or Iron Man in his suit, or whatever it's going to be, or Superman, leaving Smallville, whatever moments there are in those mythic hero moments. I always think it's fun because April and the Turtles become friends so quickly. There's so much there that's about friendship. She is their sister, right? She's their dead mother. She's their sister. And again, there's lots of debates about the different incarnations of April. For good reason, we should be having those debates. But the one thing that never changes is they all get along so well. And she's always part of the party and part of the mission and part of the fun. And I think that's why I've always gravitated toward April.
Okay, so John said, I heard that in the UK there was an issue with using the word ninja and nunchucks. Were there other issues with other countries? And could you speak a little bit about, do you know about this not using ninja and nunchucks?
I'm sorry, I do not. That would be something. Was it for the comics or for the films? Looks like Jonathan does. Yeah.
Yes, for the franchise in general in the UK in the 80s and early 90s, um, there was a worry about the rise of martial arts
Oh.
um, and the rise of hooliganism at the same time.
Mhm.
And so they actually outlawed the word, like anything to do with like ninja or
Okay.
nunchucks or anything. And so you can actually see in the case over here some stuff from the UK from the time period where they were known as the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles. And so
Okay. All right.
that's the only
Okay.
variation that you see is the Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles in the
I,
UK.
I I was completely ignorant of that. I'm grateful for the information. What I can say, this isn't really quite the same thing, but there was at one version that never really came to fruition. There was going to be, I think it was an animated movie, but don't quote me on that. I have to look. There was going to be a new turtle added. There was going to be a fifth turtle, and that turtle's name was going to be Kirby, after Jack Kirby. Which would have, so we have these great artists: Raphael, Donatello, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. They wanted to put Kirby in that pantheon and say this is the greatest of all. This is the maestro of comics artists. whatever, that wasn't the reason why the series or the that particular concept didn't work out. I think that one just didn't get funded or whatever it might be. I'd have to look it up, but it's fascinating to me that that's how much art matters to the creators of these characters and the characters themselves, because you can't have teenage mutant ninja animal creatures without this celebration of all of the creativity and imagination that goes into art. And you can't have, like I said, most turtle myths are about armor, are about engagement, are about combat. So you can't have turtle myths without weapons. So the idea of taking the nunchucks away is, like most censorship, kind of ridiculous, right? And kind of anxious and kind of paranoid. Uh, that I actually didn't know about that. That's fascinating.
Okay. And then Rob is saying The Last Ronin is excellent. Any other
It is.
recommendations for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle graphic novels or adjacent works?
So for teenagers and older, the first 15 or 16 issues that have been collected many times in hardcovers and omnibuses and whatever are just wonderful, slightly uh, slightly un slightly impolite comedy. There's a lot of bro humor in there, but there's nothing that's outright offensive or sexist or vulgar. There's no bad words used or anything like that. And they are just great alternative underground comics. They're wonderful stuff. I think the Michael Zulli stories are also fantastic. That's a great age of the Turtles. For all ages stuff, those early Archie comics are unbeatably fun, clean, wholesome, goofy stuff based in tandem with the toys and the TV show. I love them very much. I agree with you. I think The Last Ronin transcends Turtleosity. It's a fantastic read. I can't. I was so happy when I heard that they were going to option it, and that it's probably going to get made. I'm really excited to see what that. The films have not been my favorite thing. Some of them are fine. The first one's a lot of fun, but I've never really seen a turtle film that really lights my fire. I've never really seen a Batman movie that lights my fire either, to be honest with you. But I think this one, I think The Last Runner will be something sort of really different, and I have high expectations for it. So the other thing I will push, if you love the Turtles and if you love just the action adventure world of the Turtles, read Yosaji Yojimbo. The Adventures of the Ronin Rabbit are some of the best comics ever made in this country. So again, their creator Stan Sakai, he is a national treasure. He's one of the most successful and enjoyably clever Asian American creators that we have. And I've never read a bad. There's 2,000 pages of Yosaji Yojimbo. I've never read a bad story. Right? There's even more turtle stories. Many of them are awesome. Some of them are great. Some of them aren't. But you can't go wrong with Yosaji Yojimbo ever.
Josiah made a comment that he said he thinks that Kirby was pitched for a fourth movie in the 90s that
That's
never came
correct.
to fruition.
Yes,
Okay.
that is where it came from. Yes. I don't know why that fourth movie didn't happen. Either the franchise was at a downside, or with films, you never know. It could just be a studio thing. It could be a retrenchment thing. Cancels a bunch of stuff. Somebody else cancels, but it's not always a turtle issue. But yes, that is.
Okay. And then I think our last question is again from Josiah. It's a question for the locals. What is in the water in Dover that made Kevin Peter even able to fathom the concept of the turtles? John, do you want to answer that? What's in the water?
I have no idea. It's some sort of heavy mineral. Uh,
Well,
all I know personally is from having talked to a bunch of the creators is that they were very, like Daniel said, very much inspired by these anthropomorphic comics at the time. I know the one origin story that I find the funniest is the one for Shredder. The
mm-hmm.
main villain was they were just hanging out in their kitchen. They were trying to come up with a villain, and one of them, I can't remember if it was Peter or Kevin, just like put the um, cheese grater on
Mm-hmm.
his hands, and it's like, what if we had like a villain that was just like had cheese graters for hands, and that
Mm-hmm.
morphs into
Mm-hmm.
the Shredder as the main villain. So
That's all that very thing. And I've heard that. It's such a great story. That also fits into how a lot of kids would take their butter knives and pretend to be Wolverine, right? And would
Mhm.
sort of, it's the same kind of thing, like taking everyday objects and making it as something super villainous. I think that's really fun. If I can throw it, I'm not local. I'm not from New Hampshire, but my answer to that is, remember, they were created with one of my favorite Hollywood studios and media companies pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for focus groups and concept artists for video games. They're trying to get this next big high concept thing that's going to catch on like the Turtles or catch on like Star Wars or catch on like Spider-Man. The Turtles were created by two friends of different generations hanging out, drawing, watching bad TV, right? They were watching the A Team and Love Connection. And they were doing the great thing that artists need to do. They got to sit and let their minds wander and play around and goof around and make funny jokes on paper and draw a warrior turtle. And out of this comes one of the richest and most uh, beloved and pervasive all ages media concepts ever. And studios can't replicate that. No focus group's going to do that. The turtles were based in friendship, and you see that in every exchange the turtles have. They're always friends. They're always brothers. And yeah, there have been problems with the creators back and forth, but they seem to have, just like with families, everyone has their issue. But there's so much intimacy, and also the way they created the turtles, the comics originally, each working on the pages together, back and forth. There's a unity there. Maybe that's part of Dover. I don't know. You have to tell me. Is that how you all get along? You all get along, share everything really well, really nicely? I hope so. But there is just that there was a room in both of their lives to be friends, to be artists, to sit down and watch TV, to put cheese shredders on their hands. And the goofiness of that translates into all this wonderful media myth. And I think that's what makes it great.
Answer. I like that.
Oh, thank you.
And then I think this is our final question is so this is for John. What's the best way to contact the Woodman Museum?
Yeah, sure. So you can contact us through social media. It's Woodman Museum on both Facebook and TikTok, and visit Woodman Museum on Instagram. Or you can email me directly. It's director@woodmanmuseum.org. You can find that right on our webpage. But yeah, that's how you can reach us.
Okay. And did you guys have any final remarks before we close up for the night? No. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and thank
Thank
you
you.
so much, John and Dan, for being here tonight and sharing all your turtle knowledge with us. I so appreciate it. So we hope everyone has a great night. Cowabunga.
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 Good
All right, thank
night,
you.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you. Good night.
you.